Hey folks, I got a question for you today. What do you do if your vehicle gets struck by lightning? That can cause a lot of damage. You think it's got tires, so rubber tires insulate it from lightning, but could it get struck by lightning? And if so, what would happen to the electronics? Good question, right? Well, here's another question that maybe you've thought of or maybe you haven't. But as an old jarhead who at one point was an NBC NCO, which is nuclear, biological, and chemical non-commissioned officer, meaning that my job was to look at nuclear, biological, and chemical situations in the battlefield and analyze different stuff like fallout and all that kind of stuff. All the things that you gotta know if you're gonna go to war and there could be some bad things happening. In the rear, in garrison, my job was to make sure things like gas masks worked and the detection equipment worked and all that kind of stuff, and to study that kind of thing. Well, you know, I'm not bringing this up because of the crazy stuff that's going on in Europe right now. It's just something that I've always thought about. What do you do if, well, in this case, what do you do if we were to get hit by, no, not a nuclear bomb or any crazy thing like that, but a Carrington event? What's a Carrington event? Well, a Carrington event happened, I believe, in 1859, and I'll have to check and I can put it down below for you. But what it was a massive solar flare. The solar flare was so big that when it hit the earth, and we had telegraph lines in those days, it actually burned telegraph lines, caused telegraph offices to burn down, and I believe even killed some people. It's insane what a solar flare can actually do. And what it does is it provides this massive dump of energy, and if there's any kind of antenna out there, transmission lines, your vehicle, anything that's got a lot of copper and steel and whatever conductive material in it, it's going to get that energy and it's going to smoke all the electronics and you're done. I've actually seen testing where a vehicle is hit with an EMP, a directed EMP. This was several years ago, but when I watched that, it was amazing. It was like a Chrysler K car. Bam, hit by the EMP, and the driver had no idea, really. It was, well, he did because he was running the test. But what I'm saying is you're driving along, you don't feel anything, you don't see anything, you don't even know that it happened. It's just that your car went, whoop, shut down. Won't start back up again. It's done. The electronics are toast and you're walking. So what do you do if you're jeeping and you're in the middle of nowhere and the sun decides to have a bad attitude and lets out a big solar flare? Well, and just to be clear, I bought this. Nobody sent it to me. I'm not sponsored by them. I did, however, sign up for an affiliate program. So by the way, you can get a discount down below. I think it was like 50 bucks off or something like that, which is a pretty big discount. But that's just because, and honestly, you can do that too. Anybody can do it. So I decided to do it only because I bought one anyway. Actually, I bought more than one. Because, well, I'm a crazy old jarhead, and I just know that that flaming ball of fire up there can have an attitude. We're supposedly due for a big one. We haven't had one in over 150 years. They say they happen about every 100 years. We've had some big solar flares. One actually shut down the power grid up in the Northeast in Canada about 10 years ago or something like that. They recovered pretty quickly from it because it wasn't that damaging. It was enough to shut the power grid down, but it didn't cause enough damage that, you know, people's cars quit working. That can actually happen. And of course, let's face it, in today's world, you got these balloons up there that are coming from somebody who's not really our friend, and to tell you the truth, they're just at the perfect altitude that if they lit one off up there, boom, all the electronics are done, folks. It's called electromagnetic pulse. Can happen. Personally, I certainly hope it doesn't. I'm pretty skeptical as to whether or not anybody would be stupid enough to do it, so I'm not too worried about it. But I know that the sun could give a flying flip what anybody thinks. It's gonna have a solar flare, it's gonna hit us. It may not happen in my lifetime, it may not happen in yours or your grandkids, or it could happen tomorrow. It could happen today. You don't know. Although usually we're gonna get a warning of a day or two. NASA and places like that, they'll warn us, though. If you haven't got one of these already, it's a little too late for you. So anyway, what is this gonna do? This is a EMP Shield. It's made by a company called EMP Shield. They do some pretty awesome testing, and I've read a lot about what they do and how they test it. And I've actually talked to them about it because this is something I've thought about for a long time. I read the book 1 second after, probably 10 years ago. And if you haven't seen that book, it's a bit of an older book from like the 90s. And it talks about what would happen in the event of an EMP strike. In this case, terrorism. That could happen, folks. It's a scary book. And then I've read some others. There's another one called Lights Out. Another book that, you know, you think about it, man, an EMP, whether it's a solar flare, terrorism, or, you know, some bad guys in Eastern Europe, it'll shut down the entire power grid, all your power, your house, all your electronics, your pacemaker, your cell phone maybe, your cars, everything, unless you got an older car, right? If you got something that's like pre-1975-ish, that has no electronics, it's just points ignition, that'll keep running. But these Jeeps, they ain't gonna keep running. So, EMP Shield made this device, and that device is pretty ingenious. It's basically got switches in it that are like a surge arrestor that you would have. I worked in telecom. By the way, in the telecommunications world, the government was building EMP-proof facilities all over the country. They're doing it. So, you know, we had surge arresters. We hadn't put in EMP Shield devices yet. The government was, we weren't yet, but we did have these surge arresters. And the way a surge arrestor works is, if a massive power surge comes in on a transmission line, it trips this surge arrestor and stops that power from coming into the site and destroying the site. Now that won't work for an EMP because the site itself still had plenty of copper, and copper's a conductor, right? So, oops, but you can protect it. And the way EMP Shield does it is a pretty ingenious system. What they do is they take that incoming surge and they dump it to the frame and body, the ground of the vehicle. Now, it's still got to go somewhere, so it's going to come right back, and then it dumps it again. And the switch apparently is fast enough, and they've tested these, they work. They're fast enough. It just keeps redirecting that energy into the frame, into the ground of the vehicle until the energy dissipates. Once the energy dissipates, the EMP Shield device goes back into waiting mode, and your vehicle will start up, because it dumped that energy before the energy could nuke all of your electronics. And it's actually a silly, simple device, really. You plug it across your negative and your positive on your battery, run it into ground, you're done. Secure it, away you go. So I'm putting one on my Jeep, and we're gonna get it done. Hey, you know what? I can certainly hope that we never have to use it. Down below there's a link. You'll get like 50 bucks off. So if you decide to do one, you can get it. If not, that's okay. Move on. But if you're worried about EMPs, lightning, this will protect your vehicle from lightning as well. And by the way, if it gets hit with lightning, it's like $50 to replace it, because they say it should survive a lightning strike. But honestly, they also say, look, some lightning strikes are really big and nothing's going to survive it, but it will protect your vehicle. And then for 50 bucks, they'll replace it so that you have a new one just in case something were to happen again, right? It's not necessarily one and done, in the sense that they're standing by their product. They also have like a big $25,000 or more, some kind of deal where if it fails, obviously if it's an EMP, no one's gonna know, but if it's a lightning strike and it fails, they're gonna reimburse you a considerable amount for your efforts to fix whatever went wrong. So, good company. Check them out. There's a link down below. I'm gonna get this thing installed, make sure everything works, because we're doing a big old drive way up north, and it'd be kind of nice to have a vehicle that I could get around in. God forbid, lightning, solar flares, whatever happened, I'd like to be able to get home. Let's get her done. There you go, by the way, there's the device. It's interesting, I didn't realize it had this, it's got a little Velcro deal on the back so that you could put it onto a firewall or something like that. That's kind of nice. It's got a little green. Green is good. Anything else ain't. So we're going to go ahead. It's fully waterproof. Comes pre-wired. Black to negative, red to positive, green to ground, and you're done. Let's get it installed. Obviously, you got to figure out where it's going to go, and you know, for now, I may just set it on top of the battery. It actually should clear. It'll be underneath here if I set it there. Otherwise, I've got to figure out where I can put this thing. Although I could put it way over here on the other side. Morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you? putting it on the battery is not going to be the best place to put it. I think it needs to go over there, and I could put a bracket in somewhere over there. I don't have a bracket yet, so I got to look at some of the mounting brackets that, you know, the Jeep guys have for mounting the ARBs and little pod switches and that kind of stuff, because I think this would work really well on one of those. But for now, I think I might clean this battery up and put it there. I'll either stick it to the battery or zap strap it in. But I'd prefer to have it pretty much secured. I should probably put some no-ox on this, but for now, I think we'll go ahead and just put this on here, and maybe when I figure out how to mount that thing permanently, we'll get some no-ox on there. Some people call these zap straps. Some people call them zip ties. I usually always called them zip ties until I was working with somebody else that called them zap straps, and I started calling them that because then he understood what I was meaning. We're not going for major pro install here, folks. I do intend to try to get this installed a little better at some point. If you work in communications at all, then you know that zip ties or zap straps should be cut off so as to not scratch people. We call that using a flush cut. It's a pair of cutting dikes that will give you a nice flat surface on your zip tie so that you don't cut yourself or somebody else whenever they try to work around them. There we go. Down and dirty. Quite good. Now I don't know. I'd have to talk to EMP Shield and find out if these should be in a circle like this, like an antenna. We're just going to hope that that's okay. Sometimes, you know, you want to move things a little bit, spread them out, and we want to make this secure. We don't want it all moving everywhere. Lay it nice and flat. Not perfect, but if it holds this down, keeps it from moving, we're set. We've gone ahead and we've glued this guy down. It's a Velcro with a glue on the bottom. I glued it onto the battery temporarily, folks. That's got to get moved. I think I'm going to mount it right over there, but for now we've got it installed. Got the ground run over to the chassis ground. Red to positive, black to negative. Seems to be sitting there. It's okay. It should stay there. Everything is tied down nicely, so we need to start it up. But you can see it sits down below the roof line there, and I probably need to put something in over here, a bracket. I've got more room here than I do over there. But for now, we're just going to set it up like this. It's got a fuse, a 20 amp fuse right there. So, you know, that should protect it. But the main idea is that if an EMP hits, all the energy that this big old antenna grabs is going to be directed by that EMP device to the chassis over here. And that should protect the electronics. So let's make sure she runs. Not much point installing an EMP device if you have to install it, it doesn't work. All right, oh, I got lights, I got ignition, everything's there. That all works. Look at that, radio even works, the time's even right. Well, folks, there you have it. That was super simple, super easy. Yeah, I need to get a bracket and figure out where to mount that so that it's not just glued to the top of the battery. Probably wouldn't stay there under heavy wheeling. So we've definitely got to mount it a little better. I'm in a bit of a hurry today because we're going to head 1,000 miles north, towing the Jeep. Shouldn't get into any rough terrain during this trip, so I've got plenty of time to get that mounted a little bit differently. But for now, I'm happy. It's okay. It's tied up out of the way. It's not going anywhere. And that vehicle right there is protected from an EMP or lightning. Hey, lightning strikes, EMP strikes. We got a vehicle that should keep on running, and that's the key. And again, I've seen their testing. It's pretty amazing testing. I've seen testing years ago. It does work. So the way I look at it is peace of mind. So if you're interested, there's a link down below for you. Check it out, save you 50 bucks. Meanwhile, I'll put up another video for you to check out. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. And I got more to come. I finally have time now to start doing Jeep videos, so hang in there. We're gonna get some Jeep videos done soon. The old Jarhead out.